Good evening, everyone. That works. The Durham Public Schools Board of Education work session is now in session. At this time, we wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to inform our parents, staff, and constituents about the work aligned with our mission to embrace, educate, and empower every student to innovate, serve, and lead. The interpreters for tonight, Martha Romo Giles and Marty Ramirez. Thank you for taking the time to join us. As always, the first item on our agenda is a moment of silence. So we'll take this time. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the agenda review and approval.
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
Actually, I had a amendment to the agenda. But yeah, I want to amend it. Sorry. I'd like to switch the item number 7 and move it. It's already been moved. Oh, no, sorry. Move it after we get the point number 8. So academic services, I'd like to move the appointment. Number 7, move it after academic services.
I welcome that friendly amendment.
All right, second. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification and the amendment. Just for clarification, we're asking to move academic services item presentation from Durham Technical Community College to item 7, and then item 8 would then be Board of Education, Durham Technical Community College Board of Trustees appointment. Okay. All in favor of the agenda? Oh, that's right. Okay, we have to do a roll call vote. Our chair, Umstead, is joining us virtually on Zoom. So we'll start with Ms. Umstead.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I apologize. It took me a little bit to find my mute pin. I vote aye. Bettina Umstead.
Thank you. Jessica Carter-Otten.
Vote aye.
Natalie Byer.
Aye.
Alexandra Valadares.
I vote aye.
Jemai Lewis.
Aye.
Emily Chavez.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So the amended agenda passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the board work session minutes from March 9th and April 6th.
Move approval of the minutes as presented. Second.
Thank you. That has been moved by Natalie Byer and seconded by Ms. Chavez. Chair Umstead.
This is Bettina Umstead. I vote aye.
Ms. Carter-Otten.
Aye.
Byer.
Aye.
Ms. Valadares.
I vote aye.
Ms. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Chavez.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you. The next, that has been approved unanimously, both minutes. The next item on our agenda is general public comment. We have one public comment tonight. So let's do a quick review of the rules. We ask you to please first state your name. If speaking for an organization, please state the name of your organization. Second, speakers are asked to present their comments in 3 minutes or less. When the yellow light comes on, you have 1 minute left to start winding up your remarks. When the red light comes on, it will beep, which indicates that your time is up. Complaints about named staff, students, or parents should not be voiced in open session. However, we are very interested in hearing your concerns with regard to public education, safety of students, or to the operation of the school system. Finally, the board members will listen carefully and consider the comments, but we do not engage in a discussion with speakers. Our first speaker tonight is Ms. Arnett Love.
Everyone. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to stand before you today with so much concerns with our students in Durham County schools. I am an advocate for the nonviolence. I work with Religious Coalition for Nonviolent Durham. We support families that's lost their loved ones to murder. And I also accompany the families to court. And what I'm seeing is our youth in court. And it's very disturbing to see that many young men there for first-degree murder. And when I'm sitting in that courtroom, I'm wondering what is going on in your mind. What are you thinking? What did you do? How did you get there? So I had the opportunity to go and sit in on a session at St. Joseph, which was very successful. The youth were talking, and some of the things that they said was they was having problems at home. They were stressed. They needed more security at school. They were stressed out. They wanted a counselor, not a guidance counselor, but they need a mental health counselor because it is weighing heavy on their mind. You know, they don't feel safe there. And I know they don't feel safe because I'm in boots on the ground. I'm there when I see these young people's lives being taken. And so I'm wondering what it is that the Durham Public Schools has in place for these children. It is important that you be proactive. We think, and every time I'm talking with families, it's like, oh, it's not going to happen to my family, but you never know. But it's always good to have a plan in place. Now, we've seen all of the mass shootings going around. What are you doing to protect our students? The last, not getting into too much details, but the last shooting of the 3 young men, they don't want to go to school. And when I hear these concerns from them, I'm like, well, what are we going to do? How are they going to feel comfortable in going back? These are the things that I hear. Phone rings 24/7. Reverend Love, what are we going to do? I said, I wished I had an answer for you. I don't know, but I have 2 grandchildren in school and I'm concerned with them. What is your plan? How do you plan to protect our children? They need something. The community needs to get involved. And one thing I always say, we cannot do this work alone. We cannot do this work alone. We want our children to feel safe going to get a good education, not to go wondering if they're going to live or die. And that's in their mind. Again, because I see it when I'm sitting in the courtroom with these 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds murdered. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is consent item. The next item on our agenda is consent items.
Move approval of consent items.
Second. Been moved by Board Member Alexandra Valladares, seconded by Board Member Jemiah Lewis. Any discussion? Okay. Chair Umstead.
I vote aye. This is Bettina Umstead.
Aye.
Carter, I'm sorry. Ms. Byer,
Aye.
Ms. Valladares,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis. Aye. Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you. Sorry, y'all. Bear with me. I'm gonna get a rhythm here. We will now move on to academic services and presentation from Durham Technical Community College and DPS Career and College Promise Partnership. Dr. Mabanga.
Thank you, Board Member Rogers. I have a great pleasure having my colleague here, President Baxton. We're going to present today what we've been working on for the past few years. We have our team that they'll be presenting, but I would like to say a few things before that. If we can upload the PowerPoints, there are a couple PowerPoints there that myself and President Baxton, we're gonna go over before we pass it on to our staff. While we're waiting for the PowerPoint to be uploaded, I'm going to let President Baxton to introduce the person that he brought today. Then we're gonna go to our presentation. President Baxton.
Thank you, Superintendent. Here we go. Chair Umstead from afar and members of the board, it's great to be here with you. And I'm accompanied by my colleague, Dr. Olu Ario, who is our Director of College Recruitment and High School Partnerships, known, I think, to many of you and especially many principals in the system.
All right, thank you, President Baxton. Please, can we upload our PowerPoints? I'm really delighted to be able to join President Baxton to present the work that we've been working on for the past year. I had the privilege to speak to the Board of Trustees at Durham Tech last week, I recall. I was accompanied by some of our staff members here. The same presentation that was presented there, that's the presentation that we'll be presenting to you as well today. Still waiting for that PowerPoint. So while they're trying to upload these, I think the topic for tonight's discussion is going to be a presentation: access, opportunity, and completion. I've been really working really hard with President Baxton to give us a little bit flexibility for our students to have access to Durham Tech classes. Our goal here pretty much, we really want to make sure that our students, not only they're graduating with a high school diploma, they have access to those credentials when it comes to certifications, also making sure that some of them are also graduating with associate degrees. I think if I recall, probably last year, we had roughly 40 to 50 students that's graduated with some kind of associate degree from all our specialty high school, including our comprehensive high schools. We graduated last year probably about 1,800 students. Our goal and our mission here, as we collaborated with Durham Tech, we really want to make sure that we can get to 20% of our students really graduating with those credentials, either associate degrees or certifications. The bottom line, we really want to make sure when our students leave, they can be employed, or while they're going to university or colleges, they can also have a meaningful job as they're pursuing their degrees. That's why we're here. And President Baxton has been really flexible to make sure not only our students will be able to leave our campuses to go to Durham Tech, but we're going to try to pilot something starting with Riverside High, where college professors from Durham Tech, they can come to our campuses and be able to offer those courses. So that's the flexibility that I've been looking for years. And likely that's President Baxton is really flexible, really willing to work with us. One more statistic that I would like to present. Let's go next slide, please. Next one, please. I think if you can see the red, our students that are graduating from us, we have about 42% of them, the first year, they're not matriculating to any of the universities. That's not good. But I think we really want to give them a head start here with Durham Tech. Either they can have those certifications and be able to get meaningful employment, or living guys with associate degree that will save a lot of money to our families and our students as well. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to President Baxton to make a few comments before we pass it on to our staff.
Superintendent, thank you. We are very excited to be here with you today. You should know that we were fortunate to receive some funding from the A.J. Fletcher Foundation, which allowed us to bring in RTI and a team led by Megan Doyle. Some of you know her as a former superintendent in North Carolina, former principal of the year in North Carolina. And a team from RTI served as the facilitating entity to bring our two systems together. and think about the goal of accelerating degree completion for high school students and thinking about how, with all the incredible opportunities we have in this region, I mean, we feel very blessed to be a community college in this region because of the pathways we can bring people to in terms of jobs and gateways to great universities. We don't believe that needs to start when someone comes to us after graduating from high school. We got great state policy context in the state that allows students to come tuition free to us. And what Superintendent Mubenga and I started talking about is we probably ought to have 10 times, quite literally, the number of students who graduate from your system and graduate from us, whether that's with a certificate, a diploma, or a full 2-year degree, non-credit credential like a biowork that has purchase in this labor market, and create incredible opportunity. But more to the point, we need to make sure that that's equitable. We have lots of students who come to us because they have information, they've got access, they've got the ability to get to us, they've got the ability to pay for books. You do a lot to make sure that all students have that opportunity, but all students don't take that opportunity. We can graduate your students tuition free, and we are looking at ways that we can also address the books and transportation it's going to take. And what we would be, I think, is probably the first school system in the state to really be a kind of early college opportunity high school for all students, would have access to that, whether they were at Middle College High School, Dobbs Early College, City of Medicine, or School of Technology. So this is really a landmark effort to put people on a path early, to accelerate credential completion, and then broaden those opportunities to create affordable higher education if they're going to go on to 2 years, or, as the superintendent said, move directly into employment in the region. And so Dr. Ario, Julie Pack, and a broader team have been part of this at a much deeper level than we have, that's for sure, and can talk you through the details of how we can build on the foundation that we already have to do this. That's the great part of this work, and the goals that we're setting to make sure we stay focused on getting to 25% of your graduating seniors year after year. We might show them that. I think we have one more slide that we didn't talk about. And these are some numbers that I think give you a sense of the opportunity. If we go one more slide about the percentage of students, and this is across the 3 districts that we serve. So Orange County Schools and Chapel Hill Carrboro also in our service area. We're under 1% of students across these 3 districts that graduate with a degree or a certificate. And you see also the graduation rates for students who come to us out of high school and finish. What we know is early momentum is critical. And when students complete that first year and get those 30 credits in, the likelihood of their completion of a degree or a high quality credential goes up dramatically. That is much more likely to happen when they are situated within both of our systems, the kind of support systems we can put around them. Your dually enrolled students do better on average than our students as a whole. And so when we accelerate these opportunities, we're talking about very different numbers for this community of young people who have credentials of value and degrees that give them access, life sciences, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, skilled trades, and universities like Central State Carolina, A&T. I think those are our slides.
If we go to the next slide, please. So our next slide talks about the framework for attainment to this goal. Next slide. And so we know the theory of change is what we're going to have to do. And looking at that change, we know we're going to need collaboration and partnership with our parents, students, and families. We also know we're going to need shared responsibility and accountability. We're going to need simple action and collaboration. And of course, mentioned earlier, financial resources, textbooks, transportation are all key factors and barriers for students doing CCP. And with all that, we will then hope to obtain completion for degrees and certifications for our students. Next slide.
We want to take you a little historical data to just let you know where we are now. So the next few slides are going to look at that. So this slide indicates the amount of students who are earning those credentials now through our schools over the last several years. And as you can see, we've had a steady incline. However, if you look closely at the numbers, we're only at about 25%, 26% at our cooperative innovative high schools, which are CMA, Durham School of Technology, and Middle College. Those are the ones that we have in partnership with Durham Tech. And we're at an even much lower, that's a very little orange blip down at the bottom there for our comprehensive high schools. So we have room for growth. And we look at the next slide, please. This, again, is small to try and get it all on the page, but these are all of our high schools. And you can see those over the past few years. And you can see the ones that have taller amounts are our cooperative innovatives that are in partnership with Durham Tech. I should have brought my classes up to the counter. So I think CMA is on the left. Middle College is in the middle, and then Durham School of Technology on the right. Thank you. And then we don't just want to increase the completers, the number of completers. We wanted to make sure that we are looking at completers as it relates to our demographics in Durham Public Schools. So I think I'll go to the next slide.
So looking at the demographics, you see that it is even with males and females, a high percentage of African Americans. And so we want this demographic to reflect the attainment by these groups in regards to completion of CCP, so that males and females, which we know females right now are a higher gender group that are obtaining completion numbers. And males, of course, are one of our lowest demographic. We want this demographic to be this in comparison to what they're obtaining while attending Durham Tech Community College. Next slide. So what is the goal? We want 25% of DPS students, 90% of cooperative innovative high schools, which is Durham School of Technology, City of Medicine, Middle College High School, and 13% of comprehensive high school students will obtain completion of a Durham Tech certificate or degree by the time they graduate from a DPS high school. Next slide.
So yeah, that's exciting. And so you heard two different numbers there, because this is really a two-pronged approach, because we have two different types of schools. With the cooperative innovatives that are the smaller schools that are set up for students to start earlier with the degree. And the intention is when students graduate from our cooperative innovatives that they do have the dual degree. They have the high school diploma and an associate's degree. And then the comprehensive schools. So, there's a lot more options at the comprehensive high school. Some students may choose an AP pathway or IB, but also there's room in their schedule then to complete a Durham Tech pathway in terms of a certificate, a CTE pathway, those kinds of things. And so, or even an associate's degree. We do have a small number of students at the comprehensive high schools that can complete, who have that initiative. And so between working at the different schools and the different strategies, we can raise the whole level up to 25%. Next slide, please.
So what did the team recommend? We were looking at increasing the targets. So the first column at the beginning is the cooperative innovative high schools, and it shows the target population for up until 26, 27. And then the bottom shows comprehensive high schools and the attainment levels for those students. So by 2026 and 2027, we would have 323 students attaining a degree or certification. For comprehensive high schools, it would be 203. Next slide. So how are we going to do this? It's a big question. This is a lofty but an exciting goal. So how we plan to achieve this goal? So some of the things that are in the pipes is we need to accelerate schedules. So helping students start to take their high school classes a little earlier in regards to histories, math, and science to give them more flexibility their 11th and 12th grade year. We also want to look at different pathways that are accessible for students that they can complete within a semester. Then I'll let Dr. Pack add on.
Yeah, I think the other pieces that we want to make sure is that we're educating our families and our students about what the options are early on, not when they get to high school, but before they get to high school, so they can make some good decisions even in the middle school. And then, we don't want to have leaks in our pipeline, right? So we want to make sure our students come in ninth grade, they have a plan, they're executing their plan, they have support along the way to execute that. And then also, what are some things that they can do in Durham Public Schools that also articulates to the Durham Public Schools? So some of our CTE some of our CTE classes actually articulate to the Durham Tech pathway. So they could take some classes with us, they could finish their pathway with Durham Tech and still graduate from high school with both the high school diploma and a certificate. So lots of ways to keep them in the pipeline and graduating, because we know research tells us that those students that do this successfully here in high school have more staying power, they have more persistence, and they're able to get through when they get to the next level. Next slide, please. So again, this is about the difference between the comprehensive and the cooperative high school. So the cooperative innovatives, again, they are set up at Durham School of Technology. It's all about IT. The pathways there are for IT. At Durham, at City of Medicine, it's health science focused. Those pathways have been set up for those students. At Middle College, there's a lot more flexibility in the pathways that they choose. And again, it's very similar, making sure that those students have support to be college ready before they get into high school, making sure that once they get into high school, there's support to move through that. And make a successful transition into doing both high school and college work. Oh, I think that's it. Last slide. Next slide.
Let me make a couple comments here. I'll pass it on to President Baxton before our board can have the discussion. If we have access to the clearinghouse reports of our graduate when they go to universities, unfortunately, some of them do not survive some of the general classes like chemistry, biology, and all that. I think one of the reasons, because in most of those classes, you have about 300 and 400 students in a class. The beauty about this partnership with community college, where you have those students in biology or general chemistry class with 30 students. So a teacher or instructor will pay close attention to them versus going to NC State, ECU, taking those general classes. The cost, a year cost university is about $25,000 minimum. So our students that are graduating with us with Durham Tech, that's about a saving of $50,000. But I also wanted to make a point here with this plan. It's going to cost us a little bit more money. But I think President Baxton has a great idea that is going to push with our county commissioners with College Promise. We know that any student that's graduate from DPS, they have some funds there. President Baxton is willing to have a conversation with commissioners, say, what can we fund at funds for those students while they're still in a high school to cover some of the costs of textbooks and things of that nature. Transportation, yes, there may be some challenges there as well. We are really willing to address those needs because this is really ambitious goal and it's really very promising for our students. President Baxton, before we pass it back to our Madam Chair here.
I would just add that this is a very doable, my colleague said it was an ambitious and exciting, it's a doable goal because we've got the systems that we can build on to do it. And it's also doable because we can waive tuition. And so if we think about taking that $500 per semester that students get for up to 4 semesters, and rather than waiting till they graduate from high school to apply that against tuition, and we can forward the funding and use some of that for the books and transportation that might otherwise inhibit their participation, we don't need the tuition dollars at Durham Tech because we can waive that. The other thing I'd want to make sure is clear, we're not interested in students just coming and taking a bunch of courses with us. What we want is students to finish and to have options because we see this as a partnership to increase educational attainment and increase individual and economic opportunity for people to take care of their families themselves and begin to build generational wealth. We know we need to start earlier with many students. We'll have many students still coming to us at different points in their life, but we think we can start earlier. create a financial advantage for them, create clear pathways through, and build on the systems that we already have in place. So very excited about this partnership. I think we'll be doing something that many other districts and community colleges will try to follow, and it'll be the right thing for their communities. We just got a different level of collaboration in this community that I think makes it possible to be a leader. So that, Mr. Superintendent, I yield it back.
Thank you all for the wonderful presentation. Yeah, okay. Board members, any questions, comments? Ms. Lewis?
Thank you for being here, President Buxton, and thank you for the presentation. I think this is exciting to look at the opportunity to grow our program in partnership with Durham Tech. I'm very excited to see the projections that you all had. I understand you all work with, what I heard you saying, is you work with RTI to come up with this blueprint to follow. And I think to your point, Dr. Peck, we have to get our parents aware of this program. And I've said this before, we have to do just a better job of branding. In particular, I think about Durham School of Technology. When we changed their name from Hillside New Tech to Durham School of Technology, there was opportunity there. And I don't know if we missed that window when we first made the change to do more. So I would definitely like to see us doing more around that, advertising for that school, and that they're going into Durham Tech, so like I look forward to seeing a comprehensive marketing plan to get the word out there for our families. My question around the going from 63 to 323 is what I jotted down. 63 students currently in our innovative high schools to 323. And at first I think 63 sounds low, but what I know is that we have like 100 kids coming each cohort. So that senior year is at 63. How do you propose that we would get to 323 based on our current ability seats within the spaces that they're in right now? What would be the plan to get to that 323 and having seats and space?
Yes, thank you for that. So ideally, we across those three schools, we would have 300 graduates that are coming to us with going through the ninth grade, graduating with an associate's degree and in the high school diploma. Currently, that's not happening. There are a lot of things that we've looked into to figure out what's going on with that. Some of it is that understanding what the cooperative innovative is about. Those schools, parents may have chosen the school for different reasons, like a smaller school environment. And so again, it's that we've been working over the last couple of years with those principals to make sure when they're talking to their parents, that they're being very clear about this is the goal and the purpose of this school. And we're going to continue to do that so that as each class comes in, more of those students are there for that dual enrollment. So that's part of that. The other part is having those systems in place inside those schools to support the kids along the way so that as they get to the senior year, they are actually finishing and graduating with the degree.
Okay, so making the math make sense. That 63 is across those three schools again, so it's not 100 out of each school, but that's what you want to get to, is getting these children, these students across the finish line. So not necessarily more seats, but getting more to completion. Thank you for that explanation. And then the last thing I want to ask about is the comprehensive slide. I'm aware of our pathways for the innovative schools. And when I looked at the comprehensive, what I saw was more support in the transition to get them to take these classes. And typically when they're in the comprehensive schools, that rigor that they're looking for, they get through their honors classes and AP classes. What kind of support, just an idea of what you're thinking about, what that support will look like for the comprehensive schools to begin choosing the Durham Tech pathway, getting these credit hours?
I think Riverside will be a great example to you. So in the fall 23, Riverside will be our first initiative. We are coming to Riverside High School third period. And during that time, we will be offering 3 courses. During those 3 courses, ACA 122, a study success course to prepare them and help them understand the rigor of a college course, English 111, and COM 231. The ACA 122 will actually be a 5-week course. So they'll start off with that, and then they will finish after those 5 weeks and start at English 111. So we're integrating this into their high school schedule, so they don't have to leave and they understand the college, we're coming to you. Two, there's individual 2-year plans. We want the students during the class to understand how their high school and college courses connect. Is there any overlap? Can a History 131, American History replace our college course, replace their high school course? So all those preparations will be done, as well as looking at doing study halls and any additional support systems in the high school to help prepare them for their college courses. So we're really looking at creating a innovative college schedule on a high school campus to support students that we know already have a rigorous schedule as a high school student.
Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. That really did bring it to life for me. And I think this is a wonderful plan. Thank you for bringing it forth in your partnership and working together, Dr. Mbanga and President Buxton.
I believe Riverside is going to be the pilot. If it works really well, we'll be able to scale it up, duplicate that to other campuses as well.
Anybody else? Ms. Valadares?
Yeah, I'm really grateful and excited about this presentation. Already there are so many conversations around the role that Durham Tech plays currently and what, the role it can play as we continue to expand. And I love the notion of every single DPS student understanding like this is a resource for them. And I mean, I'd like to see the number of DPS students who are involved with comprehensive high schools and the CI, what is it? The initial collaborative innovative schools. Those are great opportunities to interact with Durham Tech, but I also know that hearing from colleges about students who don't meet the MCR requirement, it worries me, right? We owe every single one of our students just the ability to go wherever they want to go. And Durham Tech is a partner in the sense that it does provide opportunities for students. And I hear you, President JB Buxton, when you said, we don't want the kids to just take a couple of courses, we want them to attain something. So attainment is definitely a goal and they can get certification. But I also know that you are such a great partner. I'd like every single student in DPS to know that this is a resource for them, whether it's for certification. We need more early childhood specialists. We want to grow the, universal pre-K is something that this county has committed verbally, has passed a resolution almost a decade ago. We have passed resolutions in support of that. And I think that we're going to be growing these efforts. We're going to be growing this effort because this is definitely one of the social drivers in terms of starting kids off from the beginning with care, making sure that we reduce trauma and impact to children. And so investment in Durham's children means expanding early childhood programs. And I see a really neat opportunity with that. And I think when it comes to the partnership, I would envision a moment like a time when every single DPS student can be duly enrolled DPS and also, Durham Tech to take some courses. Some of them will get certifications in, medicine, biomedical pathways, and hopefully also understand the pipeline with NCCU that already is growing, their biomedical capabilities. And so, but I'm worried about MCR. And I know that that's not the goal of this partnership. However, I do know and want to just acknowledge that you do play a big role for many students who are not able to meet that basic minimum requirement of minimum course requirement for the colleges. And the other thing I'll say is just thank you for showing up to community events, whether it's the NC Hispanic professionals, having a table there. A lot of our students, we're working as a district to make sure that every student has access to college counselors. Sometimes that conversations may not be happening in the school building for whatever reasons. We're addressing that. We're troubleshooting. We're trying to make sure that, first of all, staffing, being able to have the ratios that we want to have and aspire to with funding that we need, right? But I know that those events in community are also opportunities for them to even get that level of conversation and maybe even pique their interest and even explore this option. And I'm really encouraged by the percentage of 25%, but I think that metric can grow substantially, in terms of students who take a course or decide that, you know, they want to do a certification program or not. The other thing is the conversation that is happening with a lot of leaders. And I want to shout out MXCAN, and they have some priorities they've been talking about in terms of access as well, educational access, and these areas of also like language access as well. You know, we're going to need languages beyond just Spanish. We're talking about every language. We've already seen the trends in Arabic, Pashto, French, so many different languages. And so I think that that's another area of opportunity to continue to partner. And I know that even our staff is, you know, coming to Durham Tech to get certifications, and those are game changers. I mean, when it comes to interpretation, that is, I tell everyone, it's not about, it doesn't matter if you have a PhD in sociology, that doesn't mean you're going to be a good interpreter, right? You have to have the skill set, and the certification program is geared towards that. So I want to definitely shout out like the educators that you have at Durham Tech to do such a great job in terms of helping us with our bilingual capabilities. So I also see that as a part of the pathway of the CTE, because that's another avenue where if we have students who want to, you know, become like multilingual resources for wherever they want to go. CTE, I love this collaboration. So many other thoughts. Just wanted to kind of put that in the MCR requirements, and of course, out-of-state tuition is a whole nother conversation that I will save. But I do want to, you know, continue that conversation about our kids that are having to pay out-of-state tuition until that gets addressed at the state level. We definitely know that Durham Tech is accessible to students when sometimes colleges are not, because of that out-of-state, you know, cost. And so I'd love to continue just hearing a little bit more about how we're approaching that conversation. And I know it's been ongoing for a while, but it's happening everywhere else as well. So I'd love to continue that conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carter, I saw your hand, and then Ms. Byer, then we'll go to Chair Umstead.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. This is wonderful. I love all of this. I'm really excited about this partnership. I just had a few questions for you all. It sounds like you've done some work to explore why so few of our students are earning a degree or certificate. What are some of the barriers that are in place? Like, is this about transportation, or is it a lack of infrastructure within the schools, a lack of support staff? So I think in order to be able to increase attainment, we need to fully understand what's getting in the way of that.
I think it's a combination of both, but let's talk about financial resources. Textbooks, unfortunately, are still expensive. And so if a math textbook is $200 and a family can't afford to get a textbook, then a student can't take the course. Transportation, getting to your high school and getting to Durham Tech. For some individuals, it could be one car in a family. Parent has to get to work first. So transportation is also another key barrier for students. Again, with textbooks is course fees. A kid could take a science course, and that's an additional $13 or $15. It might not sound a lot to many, but that's a lot for many families. And so when you add all this up, financial and transportation is a huge barrier for many students to start CCP. And I'll let Dr. Pack add other barriers.
I think those are a lot of the external barriers that we've been looking at. There are funds in the Cooperative Innovative Schools grant for CMA and Durham School of Technology to cover the textbook fees, because that's part of their grant money. But in general, if you're in a comprehensive high school and you want to do that currently, it's pretty much self-initiated, funded, getting yourself there, that kind of thing. And so that's what we're trying to address, bringing the college to the students to start with, to give them a foundation of being able to take the classes at their own location. We've looked at ways to pay for the textbooks and the fees, and then remove the barrier of transportation. And that way, when they're ready, they can move on to the campus of Durham Tech and be more successful. But there are some internal infrastructure in terms of how the schedule supports or doesn't support students going, particularly at a comprehensive high school. So they would have to schedule their day at the end of the day or the beginning of the day to be at Durham Tech currently to get back and forth to do their high school.
Right, that makes sense. And it sounds like you're talking to families and students to learn about, that's where,
That was gonna be
Okay.
one of the other biggest barriers, just knowledge. A lot of parents that we interact with, they come to us their 12th grade year. And now there's only a semester there. Reaching students as early as, elementary at this point, right? Is about community knowledge and connecting, and we're doing parent sessions, and we're really trying to figure out how do we reach families where they are, not where we are. That's the only way they're going to know about this opportunity. So I think that's another huge barrier, just families not knowing about this awesome opportunity and being able to help to get them to this point so they can get here.
And one final thing is about perception too. So in a lot of families, the idea of four-year education, four-year college is the standard, right? And so what we've got to change the perception about community college and the quality of the courses that the students will receive. And I think students don't understand that they receive the same quality point addition for a community college course that they take in school as they do for an AP course. So, there are some perception issues that we've got to address, not just with our students, but with our families as well.
thank you so much. That all makes sense. I look forward to seeing how we can adjust infrastructure to make sure that we can accommodate students, if they have transportation and everything, then we can adjust their school day to make sure that they can access this. And also that we have the staff needed in our schools to provide that knowledge and support and kind of guidance through the system. It sounds like that might be something that's needed as well. And you'd mentioned earlier about wanting to educate families about opportunities while the kids are in middle school, which sounds amazing. Elementary school would be great. But so I look forward to hearing more about how we're going to be doing that too, because that's exciting. Thank you so much.
So I'm just so excited. This is about the most exciting thing we've considered in a long time. It reminds me of when taxpayers in Durham said they would tax themselves higher to give children Durham Promise scholarships like over 10 years ago. And how over the years we've struggled to actually connect our students with the opportunities and the funding there. And to me, this is you all as leaders and you all as staff leaders saying yes, and how are we going to innovate and do this in Durham for our children, and how are we going to do it quickly? I love that you're setting audacious goals. I'd love the 13% to be 15 or 20% as y'all keep showing our students and our families how important this is for their future. We talked a little bit about language justice and how this is a critical opportunity for children that might be undocumented to earn their associate's degree with us, paid for everything, right? So that's so critical for us to get that message out in the community deeply while we work to address the out-of-state fees with the rest of the state. What is the RISE test requirement that was on the pipeline? Maybe you talked about it and maybe I missed it, but on that pipeline, there's a test requirement going down your pipe.
College placement test. So for early college, high school, they take the test their 9th grade year. And so it has been a barrier, but what are we doing to help? We're working on creating, connecting first the teachers with the test. So teachers are taking the RISE test, math and English themselves, always a different experience. So they can go back and help the students. We want to make sure that they're being prepared for this test. We're also looking at other ways and other classes they can take. Not all college courses require the RISE placement test. So looking at other pathways to connect. Am I missing anything else that we're doing?
Also looking at alternate ways, as far as the right now, the RISE is the test, but there are other ways to qualify, place into, and just being as broad as we can in terms of what opportunities we look at to make sure students can move forward in the process.
I would love it as y'all continue to work on this, and I know you are. It does go back to middle school. It does go back to, you could knock that English 1 out in middle school. You could knock your math 1 out. I mean, you have to open up time in your schedule And so I hope y'all are talking about summer opportunities to knock your PE credit out and things like that ahead of the year. Are y'all looking at like, I mean, because we have this new financial literacy class that high schoolers have to get. We have all kinds of little things. So have y'all talked about any of the summer ways to bridge some things?
The short answer is yes. Some of that is not in place yet. And, but what we have been doing for summer, like this summer, we're giving extended opportunities for students to start in some of these pathways if they haven't before. So, and we're attaching them with the summer piece, that we're attaching some pre-apprenticeship so that they can get paid to do the course. So we are recruiting in the schools, but I'll use this as an opportunity for the families at home. There are spots available if your son or daughter is interested in 911 certification. That is a high demand industry that they need folks in, and you could graduate and be working in a well-paid job with benefits. I think Ms. Valadares mentioned early childhood education. We are doing a pre-apprenticeship with early childhood education course where they will get their own clinical in-center hours paid for. So there's probably another one that I've forgotten. BioWork. And a BioWork. So President Buxton mentioned the BioWork certification that is so much in need right now with all of our biomanufacturing folks that are in this vicinity. Again, a certification that can get them into a paying job, well-paying job right off the bat. So those are opportunities happening this summer. And if you need more information about that, feel free to reach out to me.
That's great. And when we get to growing together soon, I'll be asking this, but I'm wondering if we have maxed out capacity at all of those cooperative programs, or if you all have talked about whether we could grow capacity at any of those programs as we go forward, particularly since JB is here, like middle college, like, or have y'all talked about going down from and including 9th and 10th graders? Like, are there ways you're looking to expand in those directions as well?
I saw President Baxton was looking at me, so we're gonna tag along here. So we have a great initiative. We're working with some other partners, Duke University included as well. So we have a vision of really expanding middle college to become early college so that we can have up to 400 students. But we have a good partner with Duke and other places. If the funds come through, I think we'll make it really quicker. President Baxton.
We have the great opportunity because the voters of Durham passed our bond. Your bonds and ours. We'll build 2 new facilities, one focused on life science, one allied health. That's going to give us a building that will bring all of our allied health programming out of now that will open up, which creates an opportunity to do an early college and have a dedicated facility, which you need for early college in the way that you don't quite for middle college because of the grade span. So we see this as part of this larger effort. And we've got some work to do over the next few months to see if there's a pot of money we're going to have access to. But we, I think, are pretty committed to move down this road, even if those dollars aren't there, to keep looking at ways we might expand.
Fantastic. The other group of students that I think of so much is PLC students. And as y'all continue to dream and plan, a lot of them are graduating early from over there and ready to do their next thing. And if there's ways to connect those students and the needs that they have and their hopes and dreams, I hope that we'll continue to reach out deeply into that school community and the homeschool families. I know we get a lot of them in middle college. And so I know y'all will intentionally build bridges there going forward. But I'm just so excited to see what y'all can do and the innovative ways you're bringing actually the programming to the students. And I look forward to the next report on this. Thank you.
Chair Armstead, Vice Chair Chavez will round out our comments.
Thank you all for the presentation. Many of y'all know my work is college access, spent 10 years doing that. So I just am very excited about everything that's happening here for all the reasons y'all already stated, the economic opportunities for students, the future thinking about future attainment of four-year college goals, having that early access will be helpful. And the other thing, I have a couple of comments and questions. I think there's some things that DPS will need to work on improving to make sure that our students are ready to be engaging in those college courses. So how do we make sure we raise the academic level and support that we're doing in our elementary and our middle schools so that students are ready for those college classes? It also makes me think about the FAFSA and having all of our juniors or all of our seniors, or maybe even earlier, start working on that document and start planning and completing that with families so that it's not foreign to them and not one more barrier that prevents students from thinking about taking college courses. You all showed I think it's the district demographics, but I would love to see the current demographics of students who are participating in college courses, just so we can kind of see where we are and know where we want to go. And the other thing I think about marketing is how much our students are going to be really great marketers of the program and what we're doing. And I wonder, even if we have student ambassadors or, student influencers, like we are in an age where influencers are what is marketing strategy. And so how do we use our students and parents who have participated in this program to be able to share their stories with other students? And get them excited and help them understand how to navigate those college courses. And so that's, I think, a really interesting idea to think about for marketing. One of the other things I wanted us to consider too is, and I think you all mentioned this, but it sounds like our early course options are maybe not getting at this, but how we can get more certificate programs in our schools. Like, I think about how we have AP courses, we have IB courses, we have those honors courses, but for some of our students who are on a career trajectory, how do we make sure that some of those certificate programs are now in their school as well, so that they don't have to do that travel to Durham Tech? And so it sounds like that's what we're building out to. In those entry courses, I think that we're piloting, it didn't quite sound like they were certificates, but I hope that we can really think about that. If we brought the Spanish interpretation program into a high school, so many of our students could be graduating and ready to go into a job with that interpretation certificate. And so wondering how many of those other opportunities might be available to come to our schools. I'm gonna pause there, see if there's, I can't see y'all, so I don't know if you have a response. And then I have a couple more comments.
Let me go first, then President Baxton. I said this at the beginning. It took us a while to get to this place where the president is willing to let those instructors come to our campus. That's a step in the right direction. I think there was another barrier there, pretty much with our principals. They were struggling with AP classes versus dual enrollments. We have to get them to a place where you can accomplish both. I think that was a hurdle that we're able to jump. But I think the next one is with our students and our parents as well, so they can understand. I'll give an example for middle college. No, not middle college, City of Medicine. The goal or the mission of the school was not for students to graduate with associate degrees. That was not the expectation. Just go small school, rigor, graduate. But now we're bringing another emphasis. That's becoming a part of the vision of the school. Students that are going to City of Medicine, they have to we hope that they're going to graduate with associate degrees. So that's the expectation now that we're going to work with our counselors, backtracking, looking at the scheduling. I think we're going to be able to get there. President Baxton?
Just a couple additional comments. I think what we're talking about in a lot of ways is when you're a high school student in Durham Public Schools, you're also a college student. And that's the opportunity you get as a parent when you're a DPS. You're also a college student. Chair Umstead, you talked about the certificates. We've been doing a lot of work to look at the certificates we offer across our 7 pathways, especially the high school certificates. Dr. Rio nodding her head over here. Partially because what we found was we had a lot of certificates that we didn't see the labor market value in. And we had students in classes getting certificates that weren't tightly tied to jobs. And so we took a lot of steps to take those certificates off the books so we could rebuild our certificates. So in 2023, they actually lead to something, especially in the IT industry. and especially in places like advanced manufacturing, building engineering, skilled trades. We don't want people to just get kind of the version of a participation certificate. We need something that matters, and when they walk it to an employer, it means something. So that's where absolutely we're going to be building those out. And this gives us that partnership to make sure we've got them in the right places. But I think it's a totally different thing for us to be accountable with you, to work with parents, to work on scheduling, to work on pathways, to think about courses that ought to come to you. I will also tell you, I also don't want to lose students coming to us, because I think there is something that I see in your dually enrolled students or your new graduates when they come to us and they get on campus and they realize, oh, everyone else just looks like me. I belong here. College, I'm college material, that they really understand when they get on that campus, and it becomes very real for them in a way that if we just brought the whole college experience to high school, I'm not sure we would quite get. So this kind of mix that we've talked about, where we get to the high schools to do certain work, we're getting high school students to come to us, is, I think, a great match or a great mix that then is going to cause a lot of people to realize completion is for them, and this opportunity is.
Ms. Umstead, did you have other questions?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, President Buxton, that we don't want to try to replicate that college campus on the high school campus, because it is something different about when a student is, especially a first generation student or a student of color, is on a college campus, right? And what that feels like for them to be in that space. I think I want us just to make sure that we're considering college readiness and career readiness. And so I think that, yes, we know we have as an AP student or as an IB student, I have an opportunity to earn course credit through some of those courses. But I also want to make sure some of our students who are not in AP and IB have an opportunity to earn some credit too towards, and I'm glad that y'all are revamping those credentials, but they have an opportunity to earn that too. Because those are, if you want to, some people use opportunity youth or other different language, but I think those are some of our students who graduate and then aren't really sure what happens next, and who often sometimes may take courses here or there, but don't necessarily have a clear pathway into what is a career or what's going on. So I think that is another group of students that I'm thinking about, who may not be as clear around what college looks like for them, but how can we start getting them also acclimated to some of the opportunities at Durham Tech so they can see themselves in a career opportunity there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, almost like two different, or some overlapping, but some different groups of students who will be supported by this initiative.
If I may, you can't see me nodding. I'm nodding. I mean, when we talk about the Associates of Applied Science, and you think about things like life sciences and the AS in biotechnology, you think about what we have in building engineering and skilled trades and health and wellness. It may be that the majority of students are actually in applied degrees or applied certificates and diploma programs, or equally as they are in kind of a college going pathway where they're going to get 2 years with us and then move on to Central or Carolina, or wherever they want to go. So absolutely. And we serve that broad population. Often students who do dual enrollment are thinking of it more in terms of 4-year college access, and they're going to get a couple of years or something on the way. But we've got we have 7 pathways, and that really only describes 2 of them, that we have opportunities to move into really great jobs in this region.
And again, this might be, a couple of years down the line, but how would our Southern School of Engineering and Sustainability skills, trades, pathways get connected to Durham Tech? So now they we already have some skills that they earn from high school. Now they have their certificates and they're straight out into a career, right? So some of those opportunities that I think are also available with this partnership. So I hope that we keep those students also in our mind.
Thank you. Ms. Chavez?
Thank you very much. I'm also very excited about this. I think to me, it is a way for all of our students to feel capable. And I think that meets our mission. And I love the idea of them developing this identity as a college student as well, because I think that that really matters to students. They're figuring out their identity, and if they can see themselves in as a college student, as someone who's going to a particular in a particular direction, I think that's awesome. A couple things that come up for me, I like what you said about barriers and, you know, really addressing those, particularly for families with less resources. But, you know, in this context, at this point in time, student debt is such an issue. And so this really combats that, where, you know, I remember hearing a NPR story a few years ago about how people in the worst position are those who didn't finish their college degree, but did accumulate some debt. And so, but they don't have the bachelor's to then go on and get a job that, you know, requires that qualification. So I think that's great. I like the goals that you set. I think they're realistic. If we can expand on those, that's wonderful, but I like having numbers that we're trying to achieve in the next few years. And I wanted to say it's the innovation for me. I love this being a model as well, that, you know, we can really showcase as a district and hopefully invite other North Carolina districts to take a look at as well. I agree with a lot of what my colleagues here said. I am very interested in how this will draw some of our most vulnerable students and those who might not thrive in traditional academic settings as well. So if you have any comments on that now, that's fine, or I'll just be interested to see how we engage those students going forward, those who, you know, we see kind of drifting away. If we can get them back and get them into some programs that really they get excited about and feel connected to, I think that will be wonderful. Also, very excited for this as an opportunity for our undocumented students, since they don't qualify for in-state tuition. I think the Undocu Scholars report it was some report that said, basically, this is the best way for undocumented students to get college credits. And so this is awesome. This, you know, takes that on. And also with DACA being so vulnerable it's been vulnerable in the courts, but at this point in time, one question I had around that was, are ESL students able to, would they qualify? Would they be able to to participate in these programs? I know that you all have ESL courses as well, but can our ESL students, would they be able to go directly into some of these certificate or associate degree programs? So yeah, that's that.
The great thing about having the college infrastructure is we have courses that are meant to get you from kind of basic ESL all the way through English for academic purposes. And so if you need extra English language acquisition supports to get you to a place to have the kind of fluency you need to succeed in academic, that's what we do with students often older coming to us and immigrants coming to us. But that's the ability we have. So if young people are coming later in their high school years or at the beginning of their high school years and need some of those supports, we have those courses that we can, and we do some of that partnership already with DPS, especially in some summer efforts, but that would be one pathway where we could provide those supports.
That's great to hear. The other thing I was just thinking about was talking of these programs and opportunities in middle school. And, you know, I'm just thinking about how that will happen. And, you know, having worked with young people, there are times at which they have an ambition, but they may not see how to get there. And so I see this as a real opportunity to kind of, you know, paint them a picture of the ladder, the steps that they will need to take, and make it really concrete for them. And so that's exciting to me, but I don't know if you have any thoughts about that now. Otherwise, look forward to seeing how we talk about it with our middle schoolers and just get them excited about the future. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
I think one comment towards that is that we really are developing and honing in on our 4-year plan development in the middle school, but really it's more like a 7-year plan. So we're talking to them early and we're using resources like Zello, because we don't expect you to just look at the Durham Tech offerings and go, oh, hey, that's for me, right? You really need a little bit more education about what these courses go towards. So it's a really multi-pronged approach, like educating our students, educating our teachers so that they can have the knowledge to help guide our students because they are so influential. So we're doing things like externships with our teachers out in the community, in industry. We are working, we're not the only ones that are going to make this happen. We can't be. So we're working with our counselors, our school folks, and our CTE counselors to make sure that everybody's being able to talk about these things. And then Durham Tech, I think, has been a great partner. They're willing to step in with us, not just to the high school and to make this happen, but in the earlier years as well. And so I think all of that put together is going to be part of how we get the middle school on board and excited about the next steps.
I'm gonna put a plug in. We're doing an immersion program for counselors and CDCs. So they're coming to Durham Tech this summer and they're going to experience the pathways, right? I call it adult summer camp because they're the one connecting to students. And so like Dr. Pack was saying, and these are the opportunities that we're doing. Middle schools come to our campus. We make sure our department comes and speaks during the tours. We make sure we're implementing that. The summer camps that we collaborated with, we make sure we're talking to them then when during presentations, we're there. So that's just some of the groundwork that we're doing now. And of course, over the years, it's going to expand, but that's just the initial steps.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Ms. Valadares has another comment, but I want to get in a couple of questions and comments. I thank you so much for the presentation and agree with most everything that my colleagues have said, but I would be remiss if I don't bring in my background in higher education academia in regards to the curriculum standards, particularly those that DPS is offering now that we're one-to-one. We need to make sure that we're keeping up with what's happening over at Durham Tech, making sure that our courses remain innovative and the curriculum that we're using allow educators and instructors to communicate directly and give feedback with students, making sure we're using the best culturally appropriate curriculum, making sure we're using things that are going to have standards and really evaluate the curriculum that we're using so that our students, when they get into 7th, 8th, 9th grade, they're not looking at something new when they turn to Durham Tech and look at the RISE test and say, oh, I can't do this. They're already experienced with the technology. And we know that electronic resources are less expensive than actual textbooks, and we have the ability to use them. So let's leverage that. Ms. Valadares.
Yes, thank you. I just, I had another thought when I was, when I heard you speak about making sure that certification programs or anything that Durham Tech offers has a route to success, to labor. We don't want to, have kids spend money and time getting certifications. And I just wanted to hear a little bit more about what were some of the certificate programs that were discontinued. And then also ask a question about where you see allied health / biomedicine, biomedical biowork programs. Where do you see it going now that we are experiencing AI pretty much in every system? In the medical field, I mean, algorithms are running pretty much operations in the healthcare. DPS has already done two things, or it's contemplating two things with AI, which is a big topic, right? In terms of like, how there's awareness of systems and efficiency, but also like keeping in mind bias, which is algorithm bias, which is huge. And I just wanted to hear a little bit more about like our students having opportunity to engage in those conversations, even, as they continue to navigate systems themselves, like whether it's the healthcare system and they go and they work in the healthcare system and they're seeing processes. Maybe some of these programs are, but keeping that lens of the ways that right now we're having innovation changing every facet of systems and how they work, and being able to be in the conversation now versus after, when things are implemented, and then we're starting to see maybe the downstream impacts of an algorithm that is biased, that is causing harm and harm mitigation. Like, how do we get our kids on the forefront of that? And I just wanted to hear a little bit more about programs that are discontinued and where maybe there's a possibility to create. I once heard you say that, you're willing to like explore certification programs, or kind of you're in the creation mode as well, just as you're monitoring efficiency of programs. So I'm just wondering if AI has room in any of this.
Absolutely. And I just on the programs we discontinued, we took a look at every one of our degree programs, that certificate, diploma, degree. And we were looking at first, whether there was actual projected demand that went into the future. Could we actually show that there was demand for these specific programs, and did they lead to a livable wage? Now, there are a few places like early childhood, we did not keep that standard because we don't feel like we can walk away from early childhood. We can't walk away from EMTs. We can't walk away from law enforcement. But in the rest of these areas, we looked at, does it lead to a livable wage? Is there demand in our labor market? And then started to look at what our completion rates looked like and made some choices. Most of the areas we discontinued 6 whole degree programs and about 30 certificates, most in allied health IT, where at one point the occupation and the certificate made sense, or the degree program made sense. We're not there now. I'll give you one: medical office technology. Don't need an associate's from Durham Tech to work in a medical office role. It might help you get the job, but you don't need that to get the job. Now, you can come back and do continuing education. And so we do continuing education, but then that's $250, not $2,500 a year to get through. So it was areas like that where we just saw the labor market had shifted and we were no longer were meeting demand. In fact, they had fallen off. AI is clearly an area, and we're right now building an advanced manufacturing program that will essentially get into automation. And to some degree, AI probably more through data analytics. We're having some early conversations. The key is we don't want to guess. We're not going to guess. We're going to figure out through industry, through employers, what they need, what those degree programs look like, what the actual learning objectives are, what it takes to get in there. So yes, we're in creation mode because we're having to be responsive to a very dynamic labor market in this area. And we can move pretty fast. The accreditation process doesn't always move real fast, but we can, when we can get faculty, and that's one of the bigger issues here because of the competition, and you all see it, especially in your high schools. But we are trying to move in those areas well. And this is a place, and I'll wrap up here, where your students would have access to these programs while they're in high school. And then whatever they want to do after that, once they've gotten that credential, that's up to the options they want to pursue to get into that industry, to go on to 4-year, to continue to get another certification with us that might build, especially in IT. So that's the exciting part about where we are in this community.
Just follow-up comment. I'm so grateful that nothing touched. And I got to tell you, I got messages from folks excited about this presentation who also told me, make sure you lift up the community health worker program. Please don't ever do away with that. I mean,
No, it's a great example. We need to create room.
We need to create more.
That.
During the COVID pandemic, it was a game changer in the ways that communities that were disenfranchised from healthcare systems were able to, through that program, have conversations with providers, have conversations with administration at the hospitals, have conversations about mobile clinics, and so many the advocacy met the need and the healthcare social drivers and everything else. So it was just a wonderful thing, and they are so excited, and they shared those pictures everywhere in Durham Tech. That collaboration with Dr. Viviana Bianchi. I'm telling you, even to this day, they're still celebrating that certificate program, and I know that at this point it was like mostly parents. But our students also, there was a whole focus on youth engagement during the COVID pandemic, how important it is to have messaging coming from the youth. And that program is also such a wonderful program, I think, for our students as well, in terms of having, be a community health worker. Thank you.
We're very proud of that program. Thank you for mentioning.
Okay, thank you all so much for your presentation. Ms. Byer has one last question.
Sorry,
Last question.
It's really short. Dr. Mbenga, has Dr. Julie Edmonds, a friend of yours, been involved with this planning team, or will she be in the future with her work and publication on early colleges as a model in her work at UNCG?
No, she's not involved, and I was not aware of her expertise in that area. So definitely, as we're doing this work, Dr. Pack, we take good notes of that. I have all the content information about her, then,
So former
can be a good
DPS
person.
parent.
Yeah.
Brilliant UNCG researcher, but her publication this year was Early College as a Model for Schooling and evaluated all the early college programs across the state. I know she would love to kind of help us innovate because she's local. Thank you all so much.
Noted, thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. The next item on our agenda is our Durham Technical Community College Board of Trustees appointment.
I'll get us started on that. So as you all know, Durham Public Schools has 4 seats on Durham Technical Community College's Board of Trustees. President Buxton reached out to me and shared that we have some appointments that we need to make. One of our appointees, Dr. Pat Ashley's term will expire soon. She's currently serving, I believe, as the vice chair of their board and would like to continue to serve. We also had one of our appointees unfortunately passed away, John Burness, who was a fierce advocate for Durham Tech and the Durham community. He is greatly missed. And so we will also need to appoint someone to fill his seat and it finished the rest of his term. In talking with President Buxton, as well as other board members, I would like to bring Dr. Pat Ashley, as well as our previous board member and chair, Mike Lee. I believe he's also now almost Dr. Mike Lee, to serve on the Durham Tech Board of Education. So I would like to bring both of those as nominations, board members. And I will also happy to do a motion if we're ready.
We're ready.
So I move that we appoint Dr. Pat Ashley for a new term and appoint Dr. Mike Lee to fulfill John Burness's term.
Second.
It's been moved by Chair Umstead and seconded by Ms. Byer to reappoint Dr. Ashley and appoint Dr. Mike Lee to the Durham Technical Community College Board for Durham Public School seats. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, Ms. Rogers, can I add one more
Go
point?
to Alexandra.
Yeah, I also want to add, thank you, board members, for or Ms. Byer for supporting this motion. I also want to add, we in the past for our Durham Tech appointment process have brought names just as a collective and decided, but it has been noted that we might want to think and consider a different process. And so we will in the future be thinking about what an application might look like and study the city and the county's process to make sure that we have a process that is open to folks who might want to serve. We're also closely monitoring the legislation that's happening in Raleigh. And so we hope to continue to monitor that to see what happens around appointments and make sure that we'll fall in line.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Thank you, Chair Bettina. I was just gonna, mention that this is definitely something that the community wants to be involved in, like, heads up about when these appointments are happening, opportunities for folks to apply, for us to have like a really good, transparent process about how we do this. Not that this isn't, but what I'm saying is that there isn't, definitely a timeline what people can expect. Obviously, even in this case, one of the seats it's unfortunate, right? That seat opened up, very unfortunate, and I'm very sorry. I could, just feel the impact of that. But there's questions as to terms, and there's multiple appointing bodies, and it gets a little confusing. And I know that I also had questions like, what seats get appointed by the governor? What seats get appointed by DPS? What seats get appointed by the county? And so many questions around that. So I appreciate our chair just naming that, we are barring any legislative action, definitely committed to improving and having a clearer process for this. But congratulations. Well, the nominees are on the floor, so yeah.
Ms. Lewis.
Thank you for giving that update, Chair Umstead, with the process and things that are going to be looked into going forward. I would just also like to say, I remember when we did this 2 years ago and the last appointees that we made, one of our questions and our inquiries were about getting quarterly or yearly updates on the work that's happening. I just want to put that back on the floor again, that I would really appreciate those who have been nominated to keep us abreast of different developments happening throughout the year as well. That's it.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye, but we'll start with Ms. Umstead,
This is Bettina Umstead. I vote aye.
Ms. Carter Otten,
Aye.
Ms. Byer,
Aye.
Ms. Valadares,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Our appointees have been approved unanimously. Dr. Pat Ashley and Dr. Mike Lee, congratulations to you both. Thanks for serving. Okay. We will now move on to Operations Services, Board of Education budget update. County request for increased appropriations. Mr. Lucio, are you ready?
I am. Good evening, board members. You know, I like to have fun. Or if you don't, you'll learn. Tonight, yeah, well, I wanted those things offline. Tonight, we come to you with our local request to the county for the 23-24 year. We've been working together on this, and we are very appreciative of your support as we've come down the road here to get us to the point where the ask is for our classified staff this year to make the classified study a reality for Durham Public School staff. It also has in there, and we're gonna jump to just to slide 5, if we could. We've talked about the enrollment. We've talked about some of the highlights of before. We just want to talk to you tonight about the $10.8 million ask. The critical points to this is we're looking at 4.25% salary increase as part of this for certified staff. We're looking at the classified salary increase of 4%, retirement rate going up, as well as health insurance going up. Not knowing what the General Assembly is going to end up doing for it, or how they're going to adjust these numbers as we move forward. All the money will be needed when it's all said and done, because if they go up 1%, that's another close to $400,000 for certified staff. They go up 1% here. If they go up 1% there for classified, it's going to be a little less, but still, all the money that we're requesting here is a necessity. The biggest line item we have, of course, is the classified salary study, $4.1 million, which is going to be needed to cover the increases in the salary study, as well as some of the push down that we're going to get from state salaries, because we're not going to get all the money we need in those buckets to make this happen. Giving us a total of $9 million that we'll be requesting from the county. We hope that they will give all of that to us so we can move forward with our classified salary study. And then, of course, the real key to all of this is receiving additional funding for the charter schools. It's about 20%, so we estimate it to be about $1.8 million additional ask that will need to come with this request for the classified salary study and salary increases. This is all about people. So we're looking at a request of $10.8 million. You can go to the next slide, please. As we look at this next slide, this is where we are today and where we're asking to go to for next year. If you look in your current approved column, we have operations of $137 million, charter schools, $33 million. totaling $170 million in appropriations just for that purpose alone. If you look at the operation funds that we're requesting, we're looking to go to $46 million, while the charter schools are going to go to $35 million. With that, the 10.8 million ask would bring us to $181 million, 443, 487. Again, I state that those dollars are needed to make this all happen. Not unrealistic from the standpoint of our need. We're only asking for what we feel is necessary to improve salaries across the district. We also have other funding, and we're not asking for any increases in that. Our pre-K grant funds, we get $2 million annually. The 508,140 is from the quarter-cent sales tax that started out in a little over 400,000. They added a few more. They're utilizing the quarter-cent sales tax to use as a county appropriations for the purpose of providing us part of our asks. We also have capital funds that we're appreciative of getting $6 million for on an annual basis. So as we look at the total for next year, if all funds are granted to us, we're looking at $189,451,000 in total coming through the district to the district for the purpose of supporting staff and charter schools. Our capital outlay funds at $6 million. One day we're going to have to look at that again and say, is this enough from that standpoint? Right now we have the ESSER funds that we're using for the purpose of doing a lot of extra work in the schools. So from that standpoint, we'll be looking at that as we move down the road with the cost increases that have come about over the years. The $6 million that we now have dwindles fast. So hopefully we'll be going to the county in the next few years to get some additional money for our extra above and beyond costs that are needed in capital. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give you a picture of our revenues for the year, what our estimations are. Looking at the state providing 35% of our funding, a little over $259 million in revenue, almost 260. Local funding, again, the $159 million that we're looking to receive does not include charter school funds. If we remember that, keep that in mind. Federal funding, we're looking at about 36 million, about 80 million COVID funding. Our capital is based on where we land at the end of this year. We just have budgeted currently $145 million. But as you can see, with the local funding and the capital funding alone, the county is doing a fair share of providing support for our school district at $40 million, 40% of our dollars from that standpoint. Looking to start off the year near $734 million in our overall operating budget that we have to track diligently. So that's one of the things that we're going to continue to do as we change over to our new system. Go to the next slide, please. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the budget by purpose. As you can see, almost $400 million is going into our school-based instructional services. Our capital investments are significant, $140 million. Operational support, $75 million. Administrative and instructional support, $25 million. We spend a lot of this money on salaries alone, salary and benefits. Close to 80+% is going to salary and benefits. Human capital is a large cost. thus the need for the $10.8 million to make this reality. If we can slide down to the budget calendar, which is on page 11, slide 11. I just want to point out that next week, county manager will be bringing their budget to the county commissioners. As we have to do by May 15th of each year, we have to tell the county that this is our final ask for the year. So we're asking you tonight to approve us to move forward with the $10.8 million ask, though we have many more needs, keeping the $10 million ask in place for us to be able to implement the salary study in 23-24. We will have more information from the county on when our when our adoption of or meeting to present to them first between May 16th and June 7th. They'll have a public hearing on May 22nd. And then they're going to have the adoption of their budget by June 12th of this year. In the June timeframe, we're also going to be coming to you with the interim budget resolution, which is asking, can we continue into the next school year? We need that approval from you as well. So that's just the movement on where we are in the budget calendar. From that standpoint, I ask for your approval to make this our request to the county commissioners.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Board members? Is there a motion? Or we can go to discussion too.
Can we have some discussion?
Yes.
So I want to start with gratitude to our finance staff for always keeping us on track and transparent. I want to thank Dr. Mbinga and HR for doing the salary study that showed us what we already knew, that we've fallen behind market rates in a lot of areas. I'm so appreciative that this ask, when fully funded, because I trust that our commissioners are supportive, our county manager is supportive of this ask, we'll get all of our staff to 17 an hour. Do I think that's enough? Not really, not in this market. And so I still hope that we can cost out what it would be in the future as we go forward to match public school employees to the starting rate of county and city employees, so that we are together in all things, taking care of our folks, but especially our entry-level folks first and foremost. So I think the county's going to 18.20 an hour, something like that. Did we have any chance to cost out what that jump would be for our employees?
No, we did not cost that out at this point in time.
I'd like us at least before we go talk with them to be able to start laying the groundwork for that conversation next year. Same thing with master's pay for our educators. I keep hearing them because they're looking at that in Wake County, and it's tempting because it has gotten so expensive to live around the Triangle area. I know we had talked about mental health needs in the past, and so getting, having some numbers to continue the conversation with our colleagues on County Commission, I think is going to be so important as we lay the groundwork for future conversations. I also think one slide we brought in the past that I didn't necessarily see was whether we're keeping up with inflation or cost of living. So while we're raising base wages, I'm not quite sure that we're even keeping up with inflationary adjustments. And so I think that's important for us to continue to acknowledge. The other piece that I want to secure and talk about in the future, and Dr. Monk knows, that $6 million that we had secured commitment from the county 3 years ago, Dr. Monk. Is that about when we started? So that's for routine maintenance, but things that we don't anticipate, but they blow, they go badly during the year. We still have these HVAC things going wrong. We have parking lots to pave. We just have stuff that's not fun to pay for. I don't think with the cost of construction and those escalations in that market that 6 million is going quite as far with our square footage needs as it has in the past. So I think it's going to be important for us to continue to have conversations about that amount going forward. And I know y'all are thinking about it and talking about it. I don't want to disrupt the strong work that y'all have done building this ask. I want to be clear too, that when they see that slide, Mr. Lesor, with the 10.8 million and they see the 4 million tied to the salary, I want you to be clear and say, we have to have the entirety of that funded. Can you say that like again, to make sure there's no confusion but because they've looked at, I've seen some of them look at it and go, oh, you only need the 4 million to meet the salary study. And that's just not, it can't be broken apart like that.
No, it cannot. It has to be the full $10.8 million for the purpose of ensuring that we have the funds necessary to implement the classified salary study, plus the salary increases that are part of that salary study. And the other piece, of course, is the certified piece that we have to have as well to ensure that we start off July of 2023 on solid ground.
And as far as the timeline for the state budget, which is totally out of our control, do we have any idea where they're coming together on between the House and the Senate?
So the House has put out their budget. The Senate has not rolled their budget out, but they're supposed to put it out this month. They should be able to put it out sooner rather than later. But they like to use the Memorial Day holiday to make their legislative staff work to get their things ready. That's how it has happened in the past, to get to the point of both of the budgets being out in the open. With that, there are some gains in the House budget, should they move in that direction, but not significantly for what our needs are. There's a lot of shuffling of money around to take money out of our instructional support allotment per se and set up other alignment allotments with psychologists and social workers and others, which puts more restrictions on local school districts to operate their programs. And they've been doing that, as we all know, for many, many years, restricting on an annual basis.
And we haven't seen any movement with actual funding for Leandro coming through, but they still have had 28 years to try to bring it. So we look forward to them actually.
And $6 billion
Yeah.
to move that forward.
And then the other bill that is particularly concerning is the voucher bill and the unconstitutional expansion that is proposed of unconstitutional vouchers, I will say. And so as our parents are wondering how and where to advocate, I encourage folks to keep an eye on that bill along with a host of other bad bills that are running in Raleigh. But when families are making choices and when we're looking at enrollment and we're looking on growing together, if we can increase enrollment, if we can do the kind of programming that we are trying to design and dream for our students, these are our community schools, these are our children. We can do more when we're making decisions collectively together than if people are making individualized, privatized decisions. Thank you. Sorry, you know how I go. Some of that time was actually Mr. Lesor's, but yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Ms. Umstead had a comment, and then I'll go back to the board members here.
I'm sorry, you cut out, Ms. Rogers, so I think you called on me. Thank you, Mr. Lesor, for this presentation. I think I appreciate too your reminder of, we presented this information to the Board of County Commissioners and they will have their budget opportunity. I think it's important for board members, us to remember that they remind us not to try to increase this at the last minute as a courtesy to them. I think one of the things I feel really good about our ask for this year and want to keep it where it is, but I do want us to, and maybe this is even in the presentation to the county that's coming up in June, put the cost for master's pay up there as it currently stands, just so we have a sense of what that is. And I want us to look forward to maybe including that and potentially next year's ask. Wake County is too close and it's too easy for them to get some of our really amazing teachers. I think a teacher emailed us and said it's almost a $10,000 difference for her. And that's a big difference. So we need to be thinking about how we are competitive with that change. I also want us to consider, I know a couple board members and other community members have asked us around that differential pay. So want us to consider doing some research into that for the upcoming budget. So thinking forward to next year. And then I feel like I always bring this up and I hate to be that person, but I know that so much of our federal dollars are coming to an end. So I hope as we're thinking about our budget for the upcoming, and when I say upcoming year, I really mean the budget that will be presented for January 2024, that we include information around how we are supporting many of the positions that are currently supported by federal funds. How are we sunsetting those positions or moving in them into different allotments? So I just want to make sure that we are thinking about that and that's on the forefront.
Points well taken.
Anybody else? Ms. Valadares?
Thank our chair, Bettina said, for naming the advocacy around differential pay and definitely preparing for that. I always just bring it to those two caps, when it comes to EC and ESL. I understand that a lot of the, emails or campaigns might feature one or the other, but both of them are capped. And I think that is something we have to reckon with as a district that serves, a significant amount of students who need these supports. So my only ask is just adding to what our chair Umstead mentioned in terms of kind of calculating those numbers and showing us the numbers for both EC and ESL. Yeah, I don't know why the state caps it. And I always just take the opportunity to thank you for keeping us abreast of those limitations on services to our most vulnerable students.
Just briefly. Oh, sorry. Just briefly, I'll echo some of what was said, or just reiterate that in the next year, I'd really like to see data to help us make decisions about both the differential pay for EC and ESL staff, master's pay. It's a great idea to put it in the presentation to show now, what we could be asking for, we might be asking for next year. And then also for us to keep thinking about paid parental leave. And as we're doing all of this, it'd be helpful to get a sense for how other districts are providing these different salary increases or benefits, like what's working well to retain staff and recruit staff and improve morale, what's not, and then see different options for and then what funds might be needed. So for paid parental leave, if we were to provide 12 weeks of paid leave, how much would that cost, including substitute staffing, right? Or 6 weeks, what does that look like? As just an example. So for each of these, what, by differential pay, that could look like a number of different things for ESL and EC staff. So it'd be nice for us to have a menu of options where we could choose A, B, C based on what our budget looks like. Thank you so much.
I just want to retweet what my colleague said and say thank you for the budget. I feel good about this and just always appreciate your thoroughness.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm really, really appreciative and always appreciative of slide 9 that talks about the object that we're paying items on.
Mhm.
Our people matter. And, you know, we center people at the first of all of our policies. And so we can always say thank you and just appreciation to them. But being able to pay them a living wage is going to go a long way. And I reiterate, we need to try to keep up with the city and the county with their minimum wages and making sure that our people are getting paid enough to live and live well in Durham. Parental leave, the EC and ESL support, and differentials. We want to see it all. We appreciate you taking care of our numbers in this way.
We will provide those numbers for you and give you as much detail as you need.
We look forward to seeing that, and I appreciate our board working in good partnership with the Board of County Commission and not adding to this ask tonight at the last minute.
Would you welcome a motion? Are we at that point or do we?
I am always welcoming a motion.
Move approval of the Board of Education budget request for 2023-24.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Spires, seconded by Ms. Chavez to approve the budget for 2023-2024. All those in favor, please say aye. Yep, no, we're gonna start with Bettina.
This is Bettina Umstead and I vote aye.
Ms. Carter Iden,
Aye.
Ms. Byer,
Aye.
Ms. Valladares,
Valladares, aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The budget passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on our agenda, I think, belongs to you too.
It does. It's a finance kind of night.
All right, we're gonna do ESSER funding update for 2022-2023 quarter three. Thank you, Mr. Lisser.
You're welcome. We can go to the next slide, please. Again, our COVID funds were provided to us starting back in 2020. These funds specifically were enacted in May of 20 from the federal government. And we have three pots of money that we look for in this as we call ESSER program. ESSER 1 has come to a completion at the June of last year. ESSER 2 is coming to end in September of this year as well. Go to the next slide, please. And ESSER 3 will be in 2024, September. As we look at the CARES Act and GEAR funds that were initially appropriated to us, those really came to end in September of 22. We actually, through the summer, finalized our expenses in that of this past year, bringing our balances down to zero from that standpoint. No more can be spent out of these programs. They have ended. And then that total was only about $13 million, which the majority of that we used for purchasing of laptops to be a one-to-one initiative from that standpoint in the district. Next slide, please. If we look at these next set of funds, these are the funds that we still have in play. Through September of this year, we have to have them encumbered by. The top part in the green, which is about $48 million that we started out with. We're down to current amount balance remaining that's unencumbered or spent at this point in time of $7.9 million. The last time we came to you with the report through December, we were at a little over $11 million. So they're spending down the monies as we go. Our big pot is the Emergency Relief Grant, PRC 171. That's what we're using for our HVAC systems. We use for our outdoor learning areas, as well as other personnel throughout the district in the schools, as well as throughout the district for the purpose of supporting the schools, counselors, mental health counselors, other supports to help teachers in the classroom to continue to work with students as they came out of the COVID timeframe and back into school. Teaching and learning coaches, math and language. From that standpoint, all those things were factors that were needing to be put in place. These will be the types of positions that are eliminated when the ESSER funds go away at the end of 2024. Right now, most of our expenses that we have left in the ESSER funding is in the operations area. But they're spending those dollars down quickly. Been getting some HVAC system replacements at the tune of $300,000+ a pop. That's not reflected on here because that'll be in the next quarter because we just started receiving those in for the summer work that will be going on. From that standpoint, we have a lot of other little pots of money that we'll be working through for the purpose. Again, expenditures this year and encumbrances are at the point of $14.8 million. Like I said, with $7.9 million left. If we go into the blue section, which is our ESSER 3 money that expires in September of 24, or we have to have it encumbered by then and liquidated by January of 25. That's where our major dollars are still remaining. Again, our PRC 181, which is the emergency relief funds for ESSER 3, is where we have the bulk of the money. And we have a lot of little pots of money that create for the needs of students throughout the district and programs that we need to operate to assist with some of the programs are state designed that we can take charge of, and some of these we have more flexibility on. Some of the things that they've given us that have not been that are being used are gaggle grants, money for the gaggle system that we have in place. They have other small pots of money for enrichment programs, math enrichment programs, some for driver training. So there's a lot of little pots of outreach money for areas to support the students and the programs in the districts. But the major part, of course, is the PRC 181, which we currently have another $62 million to spend outside of the encumbrances and expenditures that are in place right now. But as I said, with PRC 171, there are a lot of encumbrances going on since March 31st that are part of that, bringing that total down as well. So we're in a good place. We're monitoring this as we do with all our federal programs. We work very closely with our federal programs area, Dr. Danner and his group, to ensure that we are in a good position and that we're spending the money appropriately. All these expenditures go through that area for requisition to make sure that they're part of the plan and make sure that we're audit compliant when the auditors come in to visit us. We have a great working relationship, as I said, with them. And without that area, keeping me straight, keeping us straight, we tag team to get it right. And so, again, we're at a point where we have about $85 million that we have to spend through September of 24 in this ESSER funding, or ESSER, what we call ESSER 3. So we're still working through those plans. Again, every year we have to revamp, look at our programs, decide how we're going to spend the money. Be reminded that in September, we're going to have another ESSER bonus of $1,500. So that's going to wipe out $8 million of this right away from that standpoint. So we're in a good place with our expenses and availability of funds as we move forward. Next slide, please. Again, we're in quarter 3 of the 2022-23 school year. Just a graphic for you to see where we are. Next slide, please. And again, the allocations by area. I'm not going to go through each of these slides, but as you can see, we have $56 million tied to academic services, operational services, another $52 million. We have school level strategies at $12 million, administrative service types programs at 1.6, and staff and recruiting of these funds at $28 million overall. So we are targeting the money for the purpose of ensuring that we are looking at the programs as a whole and utilizing these to bring staff in as well as to continue growth with our students and provide those summer school programs that are needed. Next slide, please. I think we can go a few down because they're pretty much all three. They're very much the same. Next slide. Next slide. As we look here at the relief funds and what we have left to go, this just gives you a breakdown by area of academic services, the operational services, recruitment and retention, school level strategies, and administrative services, giving you remaining balances for each of those programs. In the academic services area, of course, you have the summer school programs. And that will be part of that major factor, probably be good $4 to $8 million spent in that. You also have letters training that's going on for the purpose of upfitting for our letters programs across the district. That's going to be a couple $1 to $2 million will be spent on those types of stipends as well. So there's money that's already planned to be spent. And I can assure you that we're going to make sure that we spend all these dollars appropriately. Now, we might get down to the nitty gritty at the 24th hour of when some of these smaller grants that we had looked at in previously might have some dollars left over, but there's nothing we can necessarily tie those dollars to spend it appropriately. But I can assure you, it'll be very little left, if any. If we remember back to the initial dollars that we received from the state at the beginning of the pandemic that came through the state themselves, they had little pots of money that we had to spend. And at the last minute, after we had already made all our expenditures and made sure we spent all our money, they said that you can move the money around and spend it for whatever your needs are. But we had already gone past that point, and we wanted to make sure we had spent all the money prior to them coming out with that ruling. So with that said, next slide, please. Just a quick look at your ESSER positions. As you can see, we have a lot of positions that we have allocated out to the schools. 109 were allocated for the purpose. As you can see, a lot of them, 86 of them are filled. We have people coming and going all times. So there's always some vacancies and some positions that just couldn't be filled at the school level. But we did put a significant number of positions out there for the schools to be able to ensure that they had what they needed for resources. They asked for those positions and were provided them. So it was their needs that they saw for this past year. Well, the past 2 years, actually. And some were able to be filled the entire time, but many were in and out. So there's always some lap salaries from those that will go back into the pot at the end of this fiscal year. We have worked with the schools, Dr. Stewart, Kim Hager in HR, as well as the other HR technicians, worked with the schools. I believe we're putting out a little over 40 ESSER positions at this point for next year that the school said were needs to continue. And we'll continue to look at that as we move forward. So we're in a good place to be able to ensure that there'll be some continuity in some of the needed positions at the school level. And again, we'll probably be putting out some more as needs arise throughout the school year to utilize the money at the school level. Next slide, please. So this just gives you a summary of the positions that were here at the department level for the purpose of supporting the schools, doing some of the initiatives that were necessary. Workstation technicians to support our one-to-one initiative, custodians to support additional needs in the schools for cleaning. So from that standpoint, we put out 119 other positions across the district that were for the purpose of ensuring support in the schools. Currently, 45.5 of those at the end of March were filled. Next slide, please. And as we talk through all of the ESSER funding, it's just one part of our overall piece of the budget. I'd like to open it up for any questions and discussions that you may have at this point in time.
Anybody care to go first?
It'll be okay if there's no questions.
I'll go first,
Okay.
since nobody else wants to. I appreciate your presentation. Thank you for staying on top of these funds. We absolutely have to spend them. When would we ever get such a windfall again? And I guess my question or items of note are, it's probably for Dr. Lassane, as we are evaluating current open positions based on the school position summary. How many similar positions are open compared to what are phasing out? And is there something that these people could move into? And what does our evaluation tool of whether or not these positions on the school level, even on the district-wide level, were effective in changing outcomes for our students?
So we are in the middle of the work and the planning of, we have termed positions for the ones that are ending. And so even in allotment meetings and discussions and all of that, we're already planning for what happens with those positions as they end. Whichever year they end based on the positions. We work very closely with CNI, as well as Dr. Stewart and her team as far as the assessment of the positions. That also clearly came through in the allotment meetings because there were some allotments that were there for year one for these funds that aren't there for year two or year three. And then there, as mentioned earlier, there were additional positions that were added based on those needs. And so we can try to compile some information just with regards to the factors determining that effectiveness and all of that. But we have positions for those who have performed well that want to remain with us, and we're already working on them. So it's not, I do not anticipate anyone who wants to work and they're committed to Durham Public Schools not being able to find something, just as long as we can review their credentials and be able to look at the vacancies we have available.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it's along the same lines of how we're evaluating which people that we're employing are actually having a significant impact on our students, and knowing that we can only have them for another year, right? Not wanting to set positions in place that we'll have to pull back, but we keep hearing in almost every school visit I go in, and I know my colleagues are hearing it as well, that the kids are not okay after the pandemic, not just academically, but in mental health and so many ways, and the staff are not okay. So are there things that we can do to support their wellness and healing with people this year, and maybe Dr. Muiga, you've had this conversation with your principals or with your student advisory group, your teacher advisory group and your student advisory. Do you have any insight and targeted ways that you're thinking about adding targeted folks? And it's having lapse, having not being able to fill all of these is also concerning, right? Because these are positions we said needed to be in place, and maybe even a half-time person is better than nobody in some of these roles. What qualitative kind of feedback are y'all getting? Or is it just more, we're on a short timeline and we have to act quickly?
All right, thank you for the question. As we're going through the process of allotment in the school system, in the schools, our HR folks, academics as well. I think Paul this year mentioned the folks that were around the table. Principal will come with their needs. These are the positions we had. Let's say Jordan High School, 100 positions. And we're looking at our enrollment as well. What's the enrollment going to be next year? And based on those conversations, that's how we're making those adjustments. I understand that the first year with pandemic, we had a lot of positions that we allotted at the school. Are those needs completely disappear? I'll say no, but are we getting to the point where we're making some transition? I think pretty much most of the principals left the allotment meetings, they were satisfied. In the past, they will come to me and say, I did not get all my ways, but this year was really better. As a matter of fact, I visited a couple of schools today where the principals were like, we had this program, we'd love to continue with that as well. I'm gonna pull that to Stewart, Mr. LeSure, to be able to have that conversation again. So the bottom line here, principal, we're around the table. We're looking at the needs that they had, but we're not going to be able to sustain all 109 that we had at the beginning of the pandemic. There are also needs at operation that we are addressing as well. But also keep in mind, we're going through our new strategic plan. Things have to be aligned with our strategic plan. We are doing our school improvement process where we're going to school, we're evaluating the situations. All those need to be tied up with money. What we take into county commissioners is just for the salary adjustment with classified employees. But all these other needs that are tied with school improvement, the new strategic plan, we're not going to ask for county commissioner this time. Those are needs that we may be able to address with some of the SR fund for 1 year. And then moving forward, we'll see what we can go to county commissioners. I think there was some position there with IT, 11 positions that we started with the pandemic. We're going to support them with SR funds, but in the same time, in the back of all the local funds that we're able to accrue in the past few years, we're transferring those folks in the permanent role. Even when the SR fund will be gone, those folks will be able to be sustained because those are the positions that we need. So if I can be brief, we are really working with our principals, and when they come around the tables to tell us their needs, as we decided to cut few of those positions, I think we're in agreement with our principals. But a few that think that they still need more I-8 and things of that nature, we are having those conversations.
I appreciate it. As y'all are talking with them though, if they especially for targeted summer enrichment and opportunities for where students have fallen behind, we had hope last year that kids were going to bounce because they were so glad to be back together and in person. But I wonder if you're open and listening to them on summer enrichment and also scheduling and digging into which of our kids are falling behind in credits and that kind of credit recovery and those. And I'm hearing you say yes, and I just want to be, you've been explicit, I'm sure, with them, but you're using these funds to meet their needs in creative ways.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, we're also struggling with personnel. Not all our, let's say, 2,400 teachers will love to be employed during the summer. They need break. They'll be burned up as well. Besides some of the legislative mandate summer programs that we're going to put in place, this year we're going to also emphasize on transition. Elementary to middle to high school. That's going to be our focus. But at the same time, we also have some community partners booster and all that kind of stuff. That's they're also offering programs that we're going to make available to our families to take advantage. Transportation is a dilemma as well. Would all our bus drivers willing to come to work for a few hours versus having another employment somewhere else where they can work full time? So those are all the dilemma that we're struggling with, and we're making the best decision with the good programmatic that we can offer to our students.
No, I appreciate it. I know y'all are juggling a lot of logistics with all these vacancies. I was delighted to hear from Nurse Howard yesterday when we were together at the Hub Farm that all of our school nursing positions practically are filled. I was surprised, but I told her that would be a great thing for public affairs to highlight, and so that we could actually fill those positions that the county has allocated as well, using whatever skills she has. Thank you all.
I think that's a great point you made. I think we probably have maybe 30 positions with county, and a lot of them still vacant.
Thanks. Chair Umstead has some comments and questions.
Yeah, thank you all for the presentation, and I'm appreciative of how we spent those dollars so far. I want to kind of go back to, I think maybe Ms. Rogers started this question and Ms. Byer finished it, but I wonder if this is a presentation about how we are making the transition from these allotments, because I think about, in some ways, the people with the allotments are there to help build capacity at the school for academic growth. So I'm wondering, as we're making this transition and schools are having to shift their allotments, what did we learn? Like, what growth did we see from students? What mental health supports were available and that we need to keep? And then what things are we feeling like we have the capacity to hold without an individual position? So that's what I'm and I want to figure out how we make sure we think about that in relation to academic growth and student wellness, and teacher retention maybe as well, like 3 of our kind of big goals that we're working on. And I think I heard that we're having conversations, but I would love if we can make sure that we're linking how we think about positions to the academic growth. And for us as a board to get a presentation on what's that look like in those allotment processes and how we build capacity from that.
Thank you, Chair Umstead. That's a work that we're gonna do. Give us a few more months to be able to dig into data, to make sure that all the positions that we're able to address, to add to our schools, what were the impacts, and what will be our rationale to be able to continue with those positions moving forward. Give us time to gather some data. I'll say probably that will be a conversation that we probably need to have maybe around October, because we got to finish this academic year, gather all the data, and then start the year. And we're going to have all the state report cards in place. And then some of the qualitative data with survey, things of that nature, we're going to compile all this, and then we'll be able to come to you having a conversation. And I think at that point, we'll be gearing up around December to start talking about the next cycle of the budget. And that would be really a good place for us to have those conversations.
I appreciate that. And I ask these questions because there's so many times where you see a school improvement grant or large influx of cash, school builds up really great programming. And when that money goes away, that programming goes away, and oftentimes students suffer. So I just want to make sure that we've built whatever we need to build kind of in the foundation to make sure that as some of these positions go away, our students still have what they need, educators have what they need, so they can succeed.
Thanks, y'all. I think that's, Ms. Valladares has a question.
Just going back to the ways that we support summer learning opportunities. And this is just something that I know we mentioned, that we are using the funds towards that. There's a request from instructional assistants to have a better picture of how many opportunities will be available for this summer. I know that we have more than 6 opportunities between extended school year. We have some of the bridging programs for students going into changing, moving to middle school or going into high school. We also have, AIG has opportunities as well. Like there's so many different ones. What is not clear is what is clear is that instructional assistants can apply to any of those summer opportunities, and there are more than 5. But what's not clear is because it's contingent on the schools allocating, saying how many employees they need, but also funding. That question of funding, and being that we have these funds that are, we're in Q3 for some, and I mean, we're in Q3 and some of them are soon to expire. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about communication around the number of opportunities. Because as with anything else, whether it's community education and like before and after school, the slots being limited, the same thing with summer opportunities being limited also for staff who want to do it. And they just want to get a better picture of how many opportunities they'll have.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Sudworth.
I'm just sorry for coming from behind you to answer the question. I am working with we do have multiple departments and schools with different summer employment opportunities. I'm working with my colleagues to provide as comprehensive an update as I can in the coming week with that information.
Thank you. I guess my follow-up from that is when I look at the Esther School position summary, community education, it says there's an allotment of 29 positions. Positions filled as of 3/31/23 says 10. Is that 10 for the upcoming school year? Or is that currently 10 like working right now? And that can be a follow-up because we don't.
These are individuals that are in payroll that we're utilizing the ESSER funds for at this point in time. So yeah, it's for this year. And again, we're gonna review what, as we move forward into the upcoming year, what the needs are. And if community ed is still in need of those types of positions, we will continue to support some of those in the upcoming year. They are getting a significant amount of money from the state through the state programs that are going on that are above and beyond this funding that we have in here for ESSER. So not all the funds are necessarily needed because one, they can't find enough staff to take on the roles for community ed purposes. And some of them, they already have vacancies in place. We understand that there's a waiting list, but again, it's about addressing that with having the needed staff for their staffing levels as well.
Thank you. I think that's everything for everybody, right? Great. Thank you, Mr. Lisser.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. We'll now move on to our summary of follow-up items. Is that Dr. Monk tonight?
Hey, it's me.
Hey.
All righty. Starting off with Durham Public Schools and Durham Tech partnership. We want to make sure that we create new branding and advertising around the cooperative innovation schools, as well as reaching out and letting families and students know about our dual enrollment program with Durham Tech, and think of ways to utilize our students in that marketing. And we also want to make sure that they're aware of all the high demand careers that are out there that are associated with this partnership and certification program. These areas include, but are not limited to, early childhood development, emergency management, and bioworks. We also want to make sure that we are providing an opportunity for our students to be both college and career ready. And then make sure that both the Durham Public Schools and Durham Tech curriculums align and are culturally relevant for our students. Congratulations to Pat Ashley and Mike Lee for their appointment as Durham Tech Board Trustees. The board requested that for that we cost out, even though it's not included in this budget, but the cost out, what it would look like for our starting salaries to be commensurate with the starting salaries of the county and city government. And for next year's budget, they would like to see data regarding differential in pay for EC, master's pay, ESL, et cetera. And let's see, and then the ESSER funding, Mr. Lesueur gave us an update. We got about 46% remaining for total ESSER funds. And then we're gonna collect and analyze the data to show the linkage between the positions that are funded with the ESSER that could potentially go away and how that's impacting student growth. And that's what I have.
Thank you. Oh, Ms. Chavez.
Thank you. I just had one thing to add, which was a request for the parental leave model. Thank you.
Thanks for catching that. Thank you.
So I would move we go into closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
We have to do it. Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor of moving into closed session? Chair Umstead,
This is Bettina Umstead and I vote aye.
Ms. Carter Iden,
Aye.
Ms. Byer,
Aye.
Ms. Valladares, Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Aye.
and I vote aye. We're now in closed session. We're now back in open session. Dr. Mbenga.
Madam Chair, I'm here to seek your approval for the personnel report as discussed at the closed session.
Move approval of the personnel report dated May 4th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. We'll start with Ms. Carter Otten,
Aye.
Ms. Byer,
Aye.
Sayadar,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez.
Aye.
I vote aye. Ms. Umstead, are you there?
I am. This is Bettina Umstead and I vote aye.
Personnel report passes unanimously. Thank you. We're now adjourned. Thank you.